If you've heard me talk about fears before, I usually say that there's, sort of 3 types of fear. And those types of fear are usually oriented towards like loss. Like I'm scared I'm gonna lose, my identity, or I'm scared I'm gonna lose my job, or I'm gonna lose money, or I'm gonna lose something. I also talk about the way that we think about fear. We're also scared of the hardship pains. It's like, oh, it's gonna be difficult or hard, or I won't know how to do it, or I'll look stupid, or the outcome pains. And the outcome pains are, well, if I do all that and it doesn't turn out well then, what's that say about me? Or, gosh, why would I have wasted all that time? So usually when I think about fear, I kind of think about it in, I guess, sort of 3 time periods. Like before I do the thing, I'm scared if I do that thing, I'm gonna lose what I currently have. And then I think about, well, in the process of it, I'm scared I'm gonna have some pain, it's gonna be hardship, and I'm scared after I do it, it won't turn out well. And I think that's where our minds usually are when we are consciously contemplating fear, right? If we sit down and we think about, okay, I'm gonna do this thing, and we're very conscious or aware, we sense that, oh, maybe I'll lose this, maybe that'll be hard, maybe it won't turn out well. But that's really the rationalized fears. I think there are also very impulsive fears that we have that often maybe underlie beneath the surface. The first one, which is the fear of rejection. As a social species, acceptance, validation, belonging is so built into our DNA. Like it's just it's like so important to us that doing anything that would risk us looking like a fool, that would make your family make fun of you, that would make somebody stop loving you or caring for you as much, or doing something where you would truly feel like you are now ostracized by people that you care about or care for, it's terrifying for people. It's funny though, when I sit down with a 40-year-old and we're talking about their life and they're secure at home and they're secure at work and things are going good, so life is good, but they're trying to reach that next level. Sometimes we have to really ask, am I fearing rejection? Is that why I'm not at the next level? Please don't tell me that fear is not an issue in your life, and please don't tell me rejection's not. Because you were scared doing that thing, and this might not have been fully conscious. You were scared doing that fully thing, jumping into that goal, that dream. Somebody might say something to you. They might hate on you on the internet. Your neighbors might look at you funny, if they don't already. You might have had somebody around kind of like you just knew their negativity would increase the more risk that you took, even though you knew those risks were really the next right actions of integrity for you, right? That's what I'm always telling people. It's like, when you're stuck and you don't know what to do, I always say, just take the next right action of integrity for you, whatever that is. Speak up for yourself, take that step, move towards that dream, whatever you got to do, take that next right action of integrity. Well, for a lot of people, that's scary when the spouse isn't going to be supportive, when the boss is going to say no, when the business is secure, but now you're going to try something new that might risk your ROI or your cash flow. It's scary. It's scary. And what we all want so much is to be loved and validated and accepted and belong. And most people don't look at this one. So let's flip it on its head a little bit. Let's flip it on its head. Because we know it's a powerful driver for people, even if they're not fully aware of how much they really are doing. When people read my book, The Motivational Manifesto, they're always like, man, I didn't realize how much I was doing to please other people. Because those who, you might say, well, rejection's not an issue. And I'll go, well, are you a pleaser? Are you a people pleaser? Are you someone who makes a lot of compromises in your life to help other people because you just feel like you need to do that? And they go, yeah. I said, do you ever please other people to the detriment of yourself? They go, yeah. I go, well, then you have rejection issues. If you can't say no, you have rejection issues. If you can't take risks, you have rejection issues. If you're trying to please everybody all the time at the cost of your own health, wealth, joy, confidence in life, you have rejection issues. And so what to do? A couple simple recommendations. Number one, make sure you read at some point of your life the Motivation Manifesto. It will put fire in you to stop being a people pleaser, and it will put you back onto marching the right path for yourself. And it will do it with some language that will absolutely put some fire under your belly. Second, though, let's flip the script a little bit here. If we know that human belonging, acceptance, and love is so important to us, but right now we are focused on a rejection or a concern what they might think if I say yes or no or don't do my thing, then maybe we can flip it and say, oh, well, what would I have to do to gain the next level of love, connection, belonging, or validation in this group of people who I want to serve, who I want to care for, who I want to contribute to? Okay, second big point up here. Oh my gosh, this is a big one. If you didn't take that big risk this year, I bet this one was rubbing on your brains. And you're like, why didn't I do that thing? It's because we fear ruin. Ruin. The fear of complete and utter irreversibility of a negative consequence. That's what it is. It's that fear of just complete irreversibility of a negative consequence. And here's the thing. If you've ever found yourself like, I'm not going to do that because that could ruin us, you're in a ruin mindset versus a learning mindset. I tell people all the time who say, well, Brendon, you don't understand. I'm not scared of ruin. I'm just scared of being disappointed. And I said, no, you're just not into learning yet. You're not scared of disappointment. You're just not into learning yet. Because when you are into learning, now disappointment and ruin aren't even on the table anymore. Because everything is a test. Everything is a data point. Everything is something to learn from. And everything is a jumping off point, not a cliff. I know a lot of people in the industry of entrepreneurialism or small business owners or people who want to be in that. And they say, well, Brendon, I'm scared to start my own business because, what do they say? I'll go broke. I'll face financial ruin. And I'm always like, you know what? No one ever hits financial ruin. They really don't. There is no financial can't come back from place because every person can make a new dollar, right? And that new dollar that's one peg up and another new dollar, another new dollar. And I speak to this not flippantly to you. I went bankrupt in my life, really. I mean, full on bankruptcy in the early part of my life. When I first started my first business and I was trying to do teaching and training and online training and workshops, I didn't know what I was doing. Totally went bankrupt. And I never thought, this is forever. Oh my God. I was like, you know what? This sucks. Not what I want. So what's the next right action of integrity? Why is it important that I still show up and deliver with excellence? What will I do today? If there is tomorrow, there is no ruin. If there is tomorrow, there is no ruin. So what do? As soon as you start feeling yourself catastrophizing, remember to ask yourself better questions and say, okay, not what I wanted, so what should I do today? Not what I wanted, what am I going to do tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening to start moving it forward, to making that next dollar or that next right action of integrity, to make that next call, that next email. There's always a next, right? Always a next. It's one of the great 4-letter words of all time. Next, right? So ruin shouldn't be stopping you. Fear of ruin, you just have to know where that is because what you're doing is you're catastrophizing. And this is really important. If you don't feel like you made big leaps this year, you were scared. You were like, I'm going to jump off this cliff and take this action and I'm going to fall to my death. Ruin, death, destruction. Instead of saying, I'm going to jump off this cliff and I'm going to fly, baby. I don't know how. And I might fall for a little bit, but I'm gonna flap those wings, and some point, I'm gonna catch that wind, and here we go. Your expectancy was in the gutter versus in the air. You were looking down versus looking up. You were feeling down versus animating yourself so you felt better and that you moved further. So my friends, be wary of the ruinous thoughts, those global, catastrophizing, dead, negative, forever things that you have. As soon as you hear it, you gotta flip it. As soon as you hear it, you gotta flip it. Third big idea in overcoming our fears is that fear of regret. Fear of regret is such a sort of, I would say, it's like a stake in the ground that you're tied to. You know, when you just, you want to go beyond a boundary, but this fear of regret stops you. Because you don't want to regret taking an action, because if you took an action and you were rejected and you were ruinous, and then you felt like, I knew I shouldn't have done that, well, how doubly, like, doesn't this make everything else worse? Right? If you fear these things and they happen, now you regret the action, is 10 times worse. But that's what we keep doing. We 10 times our fears by going, well, if I do it, I'll regret it. And so we gotta, just like other things, we have to flip this a little bit, and we have to go, oh, okay, well, what if I do positive things so that I don't have negative regrets? Versus saying, well, I don't want to do that because I would experience negative regret. Does that make sense? So what positive things can you do so you don't have regret? Versus fearing something and stopping so you don't have regret. Meaning, most people use regret the wrong way. They use regret as a reason to not do something. I don't want to do that because I'll regret it. Versus, I'm going to do those things so I don't have regret. Right? Many of you guys know my story from my car accident as a 19-year-old kid. Part of the reason I lived so courageously and boldly and I put myself out there so much all the time is because I don't want to get to the end of my life and say, you know what, I served half-assed because I was scared. I don't want to get to the end of my life and regret going through so many days not present, going through so many days just going through the motions, going through so many days not engaged with my passions, my enthusiasms, my loves, my people. Like, I don't want to be that guy who's rocking on the rocket chair saying, I wish I woulda, shoulda, coulda at the end of my life. So I take positive daily actions to avoid that type of experience. Does it make sense? And then I would also say, same thing with regret and ruin, they're really connected so closely in that we think, well, I don't want to get to the end of my life, wish I woulda, shoulda, coulda, and act like there's still not a tomorrow. The ideal of hope for a better tomorrow is one of the great deconstructors of fear. Because most of our fear is tied to, there's a block there. Like, fear introduces like this black wall in front of us. And we forget on the other side, there's all this open field of freedom. And we just keep thinking, like, our fear like narrows our view so tightly that we forget that there's tomorrow. So people, their regrets are held so close. Like, I don't want to do that because I'll regret that and it'll be irrecoverable. And I'm just like, well, when you have a learning mindset, there's not much regret. Like, just like I don't have a lot of disappointment, I also don't have a lot of regret. Because I was like, oh, I did that, didn't work out, darn it. Okay, shouldn't have done that. Learn, adjust behavior, right? A lot of people who struggle with concerns, and here's a tell. If you're a person who, like, if regret is driving you, if this year you also felt a lot of guilt, guilt is a great tell that you have a psychological propensity for the fear of regret. They're like, twins. It's just like people who have lots of fear of regret also tend to have high psychological concern for guilt. Like, they're guilty. They feel guilty all the time. I feel guilty, I feel guilty, I feel guilty, I feel guilty. And so guess what? I don't want to do anything else because I'll regret it. Because I already feel bad about myself. So why take an action? I feel so bad about myself, why take an action? And so their regret has become something that has stopped them. Their guilt is something that adds on to that. And now they're immobilized because of high fear of regret and psychological guiltiness. And so what I tell people, I say, look, if you got a lot of guilt, There's the simplest ways out, right? The simplest ways out of guilt. I mean, the path out of guilt starts at the path of forgiveness. For yourself, for other people. And I also tell people this, we think of forgiveness often as forgiveness of just ourselves, which you should do. I mean, you gotta let it go. You can't advance with all the baggage of self-hate. You gotta let that stuff go. And so what I tell people is, as much as we fear that, like, I'm gonna regret and I have a lot of guilt and they don't let that go and they think forgiveness is just about themselves and others, I also go, you know what? Forgive yesterday. You weren't as wise or intentional or thoughtful as you could be today. And remember, that's the ideal of hope. I go, oh, I don't have to regret yesterday. I don't have to be guilty about yesterday, because you know what? I'm better today. I learned from that. I'm telling you, the learning mindset is the great release of fear. Because as soon as you approach it, it's like, I'm going to learn through it and get better. Now the fear doesn't stop you anymore. Because you don't say, well, I'm going to get stuck here, or this will happen forever. The forever goes away when you finally step into the realization that there is hope, there is a tomorrow. Because you know what? I think one side of regret would be to have lived your whole life with a bleak outlook. Because you'll get to the end and you go, I didn't appreciate it. I didn't appreciate all those days I had. I didn't appreciate all the second chances I had every time I woke up a new Monday morning. I didn't appreciate it. I missed the whole ride. You know what? I stood in line for the ride of life the whole time. I never got on the ride. I was just a waiter. I was just a watcher. I never really engaged. That's real regret. And I can share with that because I've been there in hospices with people in the last weeks, hours, minutes of their life. And if there is regret, it's usually a lack of full engagement with life. I didn't really show up. I didn't appreciate what I had. So if you got a lot of regret, you got to learn to forgive the guilt, forgive the bad days, and start appreciating today again. Because you know what? When you fall in love with the moment, when you fall in love with this opportunity you have, when you really appreciate the now, then there's not a lot of room for fear in that. Right? In that deep feeling of appreciation, it's hard for fear to edge itself in. So let go of the regret concerns, my friend. There's a tomorrow, and it's going to be amazing. Last piece, number 4. This is what we really fear. Responsibility. We fear that we are actually very responsible for our lives. It's like that great Marianne Williamson quote you've ever heard, right? The thing we fear so much, she was basically saying, I don't remember the exact quote, but she was basically that, we're not so much afraid that we're inadequate. We're actually fearful of our full power. Because what would that really bring out in us? What would that say if we were fully responsible for the outcomes in our life? What would it say if we had more power than we were actualizing in life? That's scary. People are scared of responsibility. And in very tactical ways. Like if I said to you, hey, I'm going to make you responsible for, let's say you own a small business. And I say, I'm going to make you responsible for 50 more employees and all of their mortgages. A lot of people go, oh my God, right? Total terror to be responsible for other people's lives, right? Or other people's mortgages or other people's whatevers. And so responsibility is scary to people, right? I mean, look at any great personal development teacher. At the base of everything they teach is personal responsibility, or what used to be called self-reliance. That sense of personal power that says, I am in command of my life. Doesn't mean you're in command of everything that happens to you in life, but you are in command of your responses. And what we are scared of is that we won't show up as our best self to deal with those demands. Right? We're scared of taking full responsibility for everything, because what would that say about our lives? But I take full responsibility for everything in my life. It doesn't mean I believe I caused everything. Does that make sense? So law of attraction, people calm down. 1 second. Take a breather. I'm not saying you attracted cancer, babe. I'm not saying you attracted that mean person. I'm not saying you attracted the bankruptcy, right? A lot of that bad teaching early on in the days of the new law of attraction, was just misguided, because there's lots of things that happen to us that are cosmic, chaotic, weird things that we can't explain or will never be able to understand. It's things that we didn't attract, we didn't want to happen. They happen, and it wasn't because you had bad character or you were a negative person or you'd done something bad. Look, bad things happen to good people. If you haven't read it, it's a great book, How Good People Deal with Bad Things. But I would also share with you that ultimately we are responsible for our responses. We are responsible for the people who we become. Maybe you didn't ask for that cancer. You are responsible for how you are going to deal with that. And for those who go, well, that's too flippant to say, I'm like, I just remind you, go back and read some Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. He said it best. He said, the last of the human freedoms is the ability to choose one's own attitude. They can take away everything else, but they can't take away how you respond in mind. And when you know that, that gives you great power and responsibility in life. And so when you feel like a victim, this is one of your great fears. You might not call it that. You might not recognize it. And I just go, oh, you're scared of responsibility. I say this to people all the time who say, Brendon, I have a big dream. I go, have you told your family, your friends, the people around you what your big dream is? Well, no. I said, well, you're dealing with this, and you're dealing with this. You're scared that by putting it out there, you won't be able to handle the pressure. You won't be able to handle the demands. That's fear of responsibility. I'm fearful that I won't be able to be able to deal with the stuff. And I'm just like, there's a tomorrow. You can learn. Like, I have extreme personal power because I have hope. I have extreme personal power because I have optimism for tomorrow. I have extreme personal power because I look at the areas of my life on a weekly basis and I say, where have I been stuck? Where am I fearful? What can I do this next week as the next right action of integrity? Everything we've talked about, because here, you flip all of these. Watch what happens in your life, right? You flip rejection to doing the things that will bring greater connection in your life. Watch the quality of your life go up. You stop worrying about what will be ruined, and you start remembering that there's always a tomorrow, and you have hope and optimism, and you just always ask, okay, there's not ruin, what's my next right action of integrity? And you keep moving forward even through the disasters of life. Watch the courage that enters your heart there. Watch the confidence that comes in when you keep moving through the storm. Guess what happens? When regret is free, you let that go, you're gone. You're just not worried about the regret of, if I do this, maybe things will turn out bad. And you said, okay, what would I need to do so I don't experience regret at the end of my life? What positive actions could I take to live a life of my own so I don't have regret? So I'm proud of my life, because pride on the other side of regret feels good. Then responsibility. What would you, instead of saying, well, what if I can't handle it, or what if I'm not responsible? You said, you know what? I'm totally responsible for this. I am able to shape this, guide this, change this, make it better. Now you're really stepping in your personal power. And when you move through these things on just a very tactical weekly basis, you're aware of these fears and you start flipping them. You start flipping them. You start flipping them. You start flipping them. You get in this rhythm, and all of a sudden you say, wow, I feel really courageous in my life. And that's when you start making your greatest contributions. I'm really excited to talk about this month's topic, which is, how do you create remarkable and long-lasting friendships? And I'm talking about the kind of friendships that you love, the friendships that bring you alive, that bring you that connection, that help life feel more even meaningful, that help you progress and feel supported, help you be seen, help you feel a true connection with not just others, but with humanity, because the people around you are awesome. And when the people around you are awesome, you know you feel better about life. But we also went through this crazy last 18 months where so many people were isolated, where we had so much turmoil, so much conflict, so much
in just uncertainty and fear in the world, where I really believe friendships really elevated, and you could see whether or not you had great friends throughout this pandemic or you didn't. You were able to see whether or not you got the support that you needed, whether or not you were able to maintain your sense of vibrancy in some of those times of aloneness, whether or not you had people who cheered you on when you decided to make a transition, start something new, or the kids left the house, or you got sick, or something was going on that was difficult in your life. We look to our friends. And I think that this is a very undervalued conversation in mental health. So much about the mental health conversation is appropriately about self-awareness, it's about mindfulness, it's about taking care of our stressors, and a lot of it is that solo work that we all have to do for self-mastery. But I can tell you that the great universities of the world, the psychology department is right near the sociology department because they go together. Like, we are social beings. And when you lose that social connection with the world, which usually starts through lack of disciplined habits with your friends, then suddenly life loses its color. And I think this is so important. You're going to hear me talk about friendship today in a way you probably haven't heard before, very much from what we would call a high-performance psychology perspective. And I think you're going to love this. So if you've been struggling with friendships in your lifetime, not either having enough friends or not having the quality of friends that you've always wanted, this is a serious conversation today. I can't imagine a time, at least in my life so far, where friendships were so incredibly important. I get to share some of the things that really have worked, not just in my life and my friendships, but in studying this work deeply over the years, in recognizing how many people are entrepreneurs, high achievers, people who are trying to make great impact in the world. You're here today, and sometimes that journey can feel very lonely, or when you get to the top, it can feel lonely, they say, and I'm like, I kind of believe what my friend Brian Tracy and mentor said to me one time. He said, if it's lonely at the top, you did it wrong. I thought, woo, that's good. That's good, because maybe sometimes we value today progress. We value today getting things done. We value that top mountain of achievement. And then we look around and go, oh, nobody really knows me. I don't feel a connection to others. Yeah, I got the thing, the house, the car, the bank account, the accolades, the Instagram page, and all of a sudden, though, something's missing. And friendship is one of the greatest vehicles to the real psychology of well-being that we talk about here at GrowthDay. And I'm going to share with you a secret today, just a simple phrase. You're going to go, oh my gosh, that's why my friendships aren't going right. So you're going to love this session. I say that triangle, right, of well-being that we talk about GrowthDay. Aliveness is one of the things we all want after we had everything else, right? Another thing we want is connection. We're not after casual friendships here today. We're at like, how do I create authentic, deep, trusting, vulnerable, fun, real relationships? Because how many of you have ever had friendships that turned out to be fake? You thought you had a good friendship, and that thing turned out to be not so good, or poisonous, or somebody weren't loyal to you as a friend, or they lied to you, or something went wrong. You thought, what? How could that happen in that relationship? And I always tell, friendships are a science of relationship. Right? It's about how you create relationship with others. And I'm going to give you, again, a phrase that will really help you with this today. And then if it's true that we want aliveness and connection, this triangle, another thing that we want is meaning. Well, meaning isn't achieved just by living your purpose each day in your own head. Meaning is achieved through a social relationship network. My sense of meaning is, do I feel connected to the world? And the world isn't an abstract thing. It's not like I feel connected to the oak tree. It's like, no, I mean, did you make your difference in the world? That's going to be served and answered through your social impact. your relationships with others. And I have to tell you, I've been coaching people for 20 years of my life now, and a lot of people have one friend. You know, in the United States, unfortunately, the number of people with 3 good friends has declined over the decades. You're like, 3 good friends? Oh, we got to talk about that, because some people stumble into friendships or hope for friendships. Just like some people hope to have a loving relationship. Just like some people hope to have a good job. Just like some people hope that, they get healthier. And then there's strivers who take life a little bit by the reins and say, no, let me architect that, let me build that. And I'll give you my own examples today of where I sucked at friendships. And I had to learn, how do you do them? And how do you create them? And once you know how to create and craft them, life really opens up for you. And it becomes not just more alive and connected, but more meaningful. Like a sense of meaning happens when we have a tapestry of social relationships that are real and impactful. And then, of course, in the middle of that triangle, you always see me draw out growth. That your friends should be lifting you up, not pushing you down. Your friends should be inspiring you to get better. Your friends should have your back, but also be willing to challenge your face. You know what I'm saying? Like your friends are and should be one of your primary growth drivers in life. Most people choose ambitious goals to be their growth driver. Oh, I'm gonna do something that's hard, or I'm gonna try to achieve this amazing thing. I'm gonna try to become a millionaire or make this difference or build this company or have this type of family. And it's this external climb, this thing they're trying to achieve. And too many people forget, it's like, actually, one of the best drivers of growth isn't your job, isn't your goals, it's your friendship circle. And when your friendship circles make you a more alive, deeper, caring, thoughtful, authentic person in the world, I'm telling you what, guess what? At work, you're better. At home, you're better. Your art gets better. Your sense of life lifts. Let me share with you what I really believe to be the 2 central problems of friendship. Okay, the 2 central problems of friendship. The first one is a failure of each of our own. Like, I'm just taking this on myself as well. It's like we fail in life to realize most of our friendships were assigned, not aligned. Most of our friendships were assigned, not aligned. What I mean by that is many of our friendships happen because group assignment, right? Think about it. Some of your best friends, where'd you meet them? School? Your neighborhood? Some other affiliation, maybe at work? Maybe in a group that you joined? So it was like, oh, we showed up somewhere or we were assigned somewhere and there was that girl who sat next to me in class. We became friends. Or, oh, I worked with this person at work. And we were coworkers. We became friends. And these are kind of like assigned friends. And I know that sounds really weird to say, so bear with me a little bit. I don't mean that the manager like, you're gonna be friends here. What I mean is, because of your group, your affiliation, or where you were, you kind of met people there, and by default, by you being a good person or communicating or doing stuff with them, you kind of became friends. Versus, that's like an assigned friend. It's like, oh, because we were here, we became friends. Versus an aligned friend, which is, oh, I'm an adult now. What are the types of friends that I want to create that align with my passion, my dreams, my lifestyle, my values, my beliefs, the things that I want of life, and let me go get them, not let them fall into my lap. Which brings up the second designation. And this is hard to say to people. And if you're in a place where you feel lonely in your life or you feel like you don't have great friendships, I promise this will be so helpful for you today to even know how your own brain thinks. And many of us, and I was this way probably all the way throughout high school even, I never, and this is the second problem of friendships, I never made the deliberate choice to have remarkable friendships. I kind of ended up with friends. Anyone know what I'm talking about? Who's like ended up with friends? Well, if you kind of just like ended up with like this person, it was kind of, my friend, one of my buddies he goes, I don't want no rando friends. And it was like random. Now, I love random. I love the universe. I love God. I love coincidence. Listen, I read the Celestine prophecy. People are glowing out there for me. I believe in that coincidence stuff. But I can also share with you, like, if you just allow randomness in your life all the time, you'll always feel a sense of mediocrity too. We have to stretch. We have to choose our life. And to choose our life, we have to be deliberate and go, what kind of life do I want? I would like you to learn to architect your ideal friendships. And can you get all of them, and will all your friendships be perfect? I'm not that guy. I'm not here to promise everything's gonna be sweet and perfect and peaches in life. I am here to suggest, though, that if you haven't deliberately chosen the types of friendships that you want, that's a problem, especially if you're an adult, right? And that's the thing is, we're not encouraged to do that. Think about how much time people were feeding your ears with the idea you had to be really thoughtful about the career you choose. How many of you ever had more people tell you more times about be so thoughtful about the school you choose, the career you choose, but no one ever said as much, be very thoughtful about the friends and the friendships that you build. And that's why we have a lot of high-achieving people who are lonely their whole life. Well, think about your career. What are you going to be one day? Very rarely, what's the type of social network you're going to build around you? What's the type of friendships you're going to architect? What are you going to be proud of in terms of your friends in the future? What do you want your friends to achieve? What do you want your friends to experience in life? Not just what they give you, but what are you going to give out too? What kind of friendship do you want to create and experience? How do you want your friends to actually interact with one another? Have you ever thought about that? We spend so much time, if you're a parent and you have 2 kids, you're so worried about how they interact, right? I know people who've never even thought, how do I want my friends to interact? I mean, they might think, you know what, we shouldn't put them in a room at a party because they have this history, that background, but very few people are like, I'm gonna actually teach my friends how to be friends with one another. Now, I know some of you might be like, this guy sounds like a control freak. I'm like, I am, but I'm a happy one. You know what I'm saying? I think this is such an important area to architect. Most friends have never talked about how to be friends. They just go, you wanna go to lunch? They go to lunch, they talk about the weather, the waiter, the food, what's going on, they leave, and there's no architecting, there's no, I think of like, social systems are things that can be shaped. You all think like at work, right? How much we talk about at work, building a culture. More books and more people have spent time on this conversation of building culture at work and never the culture of a friendship. Isn't that weird? I don't know where along the line we lost the conversation and the desire to choose to build awesome friendships and a culture of friendship. Meaning not just friends. Most people think of, I want a friend, right? When you're in high school, you just want a friend, right? You just like, at least I was like, can I get one? You know, it's like, you worry about having friendships when you grow up. And usually that means you think, and we're all trained this way, especially in Western cultures. We're taught to have a friend, and we think in a very individualistic mode. I and this person are in relationship, and then you have another friend. I and this person are in relationship. And maybe you go out and you try to get them together, and we have a party. But even at the party, It's individual nodes, me, that friend, and this friend. And I don't get trained as I'm getting older to think as a systems social architect. Oh, wow, look at all these nodes, if you will, these friends. If I like each of these people and I have a relationship with each of these people, why don't, in some way, I weave them together and create a tapestry of friendship where I'm actually connecting the dots and creating a culture of friendship? See, we don't think like that, do we? I was a very kind of solitary child. I was kind of in my own little world. I don't know about you all, but I was definitely, I would be like an introverted kind of child. I kind of kept to myself. I like to play with my toys kind of by myself. In elementary school, from what I can remember, I was kind of solo, Brendon. I didn't see social systems, right? I was in a class with kids and a teacher, and I had a relationship with the teacher, and I had a relationship with this person or that person or not, but I couldn't see the class. I couldn't say, oh, like this group is kind of like this. Instead, it was just like, she likes me or she doesn't. Teachers like that. I didn't see the system. Today, I'd like you to try to see the system a little bit. See the system of the friendships you've built in your life. See the system at play at work. See the system of your culture or your nonprofit or your company. When you can start seeing a bigger picture and get out of your head a little bit, now something happens. There's connection, there's community. See, everyone says, I want community. I'm like, well, you can't be an individualistic person in the community forever. You have to elevate to seeing the system. If you'll never be a community member or an effective one or a helpful one if you can't get out of your head. Well, I'm saying that not as judgment to you, that was me. So there's no judgment here. If you don't have friends, I'm telling you my story too. I was a solo person. I was in my own head. I couldn't see the class. I couldn't see the system. And so I felt apart. And because I felt apart and I couldn't see what was happening and I didn't know how to engage, I was lonely. And then when I finally made a connection with a friend, that friend became my life. Later on, that perpetuated into, some of you guys know my story of my first breakup with my high school sweetheart. I was destroyed because that was my one person, right? That was my one node in the world. And then when that relationship fell apart, I fell apart and became depressed and suicidal. And so how we relate with one or multiple people can completely shape our mental health. I know you already know that. And so I had to learn, wow, one, I don't want to ever be dependent on one friend. I want to build a support system. You ever heard that language before? No one says, go build a supporter. I want you to listen to the language of successful people. When successful people are speaking, they never tell you, go build a supporter. They say, go build what? A support system, a support network. Oh, I got to get out of single node thinking. A node is a one individual unit, and I got to get into the system. I got to stop thinking, does Sally at the class next, does she like me? And if she likes me, my whole life is good or bad or ruined. And I got to go, there's a class here. There's an energy, a vibe, a spirit. There's rules and norms. There's a culture here that is happening. How do I want to participate in this? And how do I want this culture to happen too in ways that I can affect? What do they want? And we all have to start thinking about that more in a society in which we're supposedly connected, but we've actually become individual nodes in the network. Hey y'all, it's Brendon, and in this episode, we're gonna talk about something that came up way more often than I ever imagined after we launched our study of high performers worldwide. And as much as I've taught people how to succeed and taught them to master their mindset, taught them the habits that we know literally lead to long-term success, I cannot believe the number of people who wrote in or asked throughout this year, this last 12 months, hey, Brendon, I know what to do, but I kind of suffer sometimes from imposter syndrome. You know, I feel like I'm going through the motions, but I don't feel like I'm, worth it, or I don't feel like I can see myself succeeding like other people did. I feel like I'm faking it sometime. Like, what do you do if you ever deal with imposter syndrome? And amazingly, I love to share with people, that was kind of part of the story that one of the persons who I interviewed for High Performance Habits, which I hope you guys all have, there's a link in this post where you can get a free hardcover copy, that this woman was dealing with, where she felt like she just couldn't really break through, and she knew achievement wasn't her problem, but alignment was her problem. She knew how to get stuff done, but she really wasn't getting stuff done in an alignment with her true character, her true beliefs, her true values, the things that really lit her up and made her happy and succeeding. She kind of felt like she was going through the motions sometimes, or copying other people. And that imposter syndrome also sometimes made her not feel confident enough to put herself out there, because she thought, who am I? Or I can't compare with them. Or that imposter syndrome really sort of bled into her work, where she felt like, well, you know what? This isn't gonna work for me. I don't really belong here. And so if you ever felt any of that, this is the episode for you. I've got some notes here. I've been thinking about this quite a bit as we head into this time of year, where a lot of people are looking back to this year, last 12 months. And I'd like to ask you, do you feel like you really lived your most authentic, vibrant, true, passionate, productive you? Do you feel like sometimes you were faking it till you made it? Do you feel like sometimes you just didn't belong? Even if you were successful or you're doing good things, you felt like, well, I'm not like them. I don't really belong here. If that's true for you, then I'd really love for you to take some notes on this episode. I'm trying to change up how we're doing these, kind of get in your face a little bit more, do a little bit more coaching as you guys have been requesting. Obviously, we have products and programs for that. Those links are also in this post somewhere, but I felt like just taking on this imposter syndrome for you. And it was a struggle. I had to take some notes, because I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I ever felt it the way that most people talk to me about it. And partially that was because I was young, dumb, and naive when I began in this industry. Right? In this industry, if you're watching me on YouTube or later on Facebook or somewhere else out there on the interwebs, you know that it's a fairly young industry. I started doing major online courses and development in terms of like personal and professional development online, and teaching that as far back as 2006, which was really early. You gotta remember, that's like before the iPhone, right? That was a long time ago. That was when most people would like cancel something or refund something that I gave them, not because of the quality, but because the buffer speed on the video is really big. So I kind of lucked out to begin in this industry when it was like the Wild West. There weren't many of us. I was like one of the pioneers in personal online courses, like personal development online courses, like way early. So I didn't enter an industry where there were a lot of super established people outside of there were major authors, there were some major, motivational speakers, there were some people who were doing seminars, but social media wasn't there yet. And this whole world where we have influencers all over Instagram now, like all day long, you can swipe through them. I didn't feel like I was competing with them. So I know that might sound like big-headed to say I didn't feel imposter syndrome, but I just didn't, because I began something that was really fresh. I also had the benefit of being naive enough to just do my own thing without really, at the very beginning, seeking out other role models and mentors. I didn't really, I didn't have a peer set. I started this industry, I started with nothing. I was bankrupt. So I wasn't around other people where I could compare myself all day and ask whether I belonged. I just had this passion, and I was just gonna give everything into this passion and not worry about what other people thought, and not worry even about how I felt. I was just gonna do the hard work, show up, and make it happen. And so that might be part of my message to you today. If you have that imposter syndrome, stop worrying about whether you belong. I always tell millennials, especially a lot of folks who I get to coach at that age, successful entrepreneurs and startup founders in Silicon Valley especially, I tell them, hey, listen, stop asking whether or not you belong and start asking whether or not you're being of service. Part of the imposter syndrome comes from the selfie syndrome.
Like just thinking about myself. Am I right? Do I really fit in? Am I good enough? Am I worthy enough? And it's I, worry. It's from this selfie generation where we're all like, like taking pictures of ourselves and thinking about how we portray ourselves all the time. And how do I portray myself? Does it fit in with everything else? And because it doesn't, I don't feel like I belong. Part of it's like, stop asking if you belong, start asking if you're being of absolute service every day. Because if you feel like you're being absolute service every day, you're not gonna worry whether you fit in as much, you're gonna worry whether you're getting the job done, right? You're gonna worry whether or not you're actually contributing value. Because I think one part of the imposter syndrome is that people don't feel like they're adding value, and if they're really honest, they know they're not. And because they're not adding value, they feel like, gosh, this isn't right for me, or I'm faking it, and the fact is they are. So let's talk about 4 ways to deal with this. Number 1, if you have the imposter syndrome and it's firing off and you don't feel like you belong, or you feel like you're faking it and you don't deserve it, or you're not worthy, well then job number 1 is stop faking it. Start asking, how can you do what you're doing in a way that you feel like is authentic, real, and adding real value the way that you would do it. Stop trying to do it the way everyone else is doing, because that's what faking it ultimately is. It's like you're just conforming and you're copying and you're doing what other people like what they're doing, and no wonder you feel like crap. Because if you show up every day and you live like a copy, you're never gonna feel that vibrancy comes from personal freedom, that comes from personal authenticity, that comes from knowing like this day is mine. Because if you live each day as another person, you never get that gift of this day's mine. I got it. This is real for me. And so of course you feel like a fake and a phony, because you're showing up running everybody else's playbook, trying to fit into everybody else's thing. And I'm here to tell you, listen, I know I'm being a little hard sometimes in my videos, but I'm here to, I do that because I'm cheering you on. I know that no matter who you are and where you're watching this or when you're listening to this, I know this about you. You've got like a bottomless level of potential. Like, you have the ability to figure things out and live life on your terms and add a level of value into the world that I can't do, that anybody else you follow, watch, they can't do, because they're not you. They haven't lived uniquely in your shoes. They haven't studied what you study, or observed what you have observed, or dealt with everything that you've dealt with, or had the same exact aspirations and dreams. There's 7 billion people on the planet. We're all unique. And so you've got to say, okay, if I feel like an imposter here, what would my truth be in this space? What would, if I stepped away and I just, what would be real for me to do? Your job 1 is to stop faking it, stop conforming, stop copying, and say, how would I do this and add a unique value that I'm passionate about? And that helps immediately break some of that imposter syndrome. Number 2, if you feel like you are experiencing imposter syndrome, number 2 is stop avoiding difficulties. What happens is, because you don't feel like you belong, or you don't feel like it's real for you, or you don't deserve that level of success, you back off, and your primary strategy is avoidance. You start avoiding those difficult tasks each day that actually give you momentum and progress towards the thing, so you can feel it and integrate it and know it is you, right? You're not getting that momentum forward on the things that matter, so you're not getting that identity that says, wow, this is me, I am making this happen. Instead, you're observing it and you're avoiding it. And so as you see people do great things, or you avoid the difficult hardships, your psychology starts saying, hey, you're full of crap. You're not even trying. You're not even doing it. You know what? Yeah, you showed up here, but you're just going through the motions and you're not taking on the tough stuff. And here's a weird thing. If you're not getting momentum, you won't have the mindset of authenticity. If you're just kind of kicking tires or dipping your toe in the water, your brain goes, I'm fake. This isn't real. You'll always feel like an imposter if you don't get real momentum. When you get real momentum, your brain goes, hey, this is us. We're doing this. This is real. And the identity of an achiever in that space that you are in, starts firing, and now it starts feeling real. You're like, wow, I got this. I'm doing this. This is good. And the imposter syndrome starts going away. The third big idea to help you do exactly that and to deal with imposter syndrome is to work daily goals. You cannot keep showing up random to so many days of your life, because in reaction, we feel smaller. In reaction, we feel constrained and constricted by the world. We feel like things are unfair. In reaction, we're less motivated. In reaction, we won't break through. So you gotta have goals built out that you're moving towards that does give you that identity of achievement and that identity of realness that says, hey, I'm doing this. And so here's what I need you to do. I need you to look at the next 12 months and I need you to set at least 5 big goals for this next year. Then I want you to break each of those 5 goals down into 5 different deadlines for each quarter. Meaning, like, if you've got one goal for the year, I want you to set down a deadline for quarter 4, quarter 3, quarter 2, quarter 1. So that today, as you go out these next 12 months, as an example, you go, okay, in quarter 1, I'm gonna achieve this deadline that's gonna help me move towards this goal by the end of the year. Quarter 2, I'm gonna achieve this deadline that will help me move even closer. Quarter 3, even closer. Quarter 4, we've achieved it. Make sense? So you're busting down quarterly goals or quarterly deadlines. Then you're saying, okay, what does that mean? What are the major activities I need to do each week leading into that? And then each day leading to that. Just work it backwards, my friend. Because you know when you don't have confidence, when you don't have clarity. So if you're like, I wanna do it, and I'm kind of doing it, and things are going okay, but I still feel like it's not real for me, and I don't like it. Partially, the reason is you just don't know what to do. And when we don't know what to do, when we lack competence, we also lack confidence, right? We're always talking about this in my high performance work. Hopefully you read this in High Performance Habits. It's that issue of the competence-confidence loop. And we're not gonna get you more competent if you don't try new things, which requires confidence. And if you try new things, you learn more, which gives you confidence. So it's this loop, right? And I think it's really important that you understand, if you're not working goals every day, if you're just reacting and doing tasks, fulfilling everybody else's needs, that's gonna eat away. Even if you have a lot of success, even if you're doing great. And that's where I really tell people, you know when the imposter syndrome really sucks is when you're actually getting ahead, you are doing good things, like things are happening, but you still don't feel like you're worthwhile. And that's happening because you're not celebrating those goals along the way. You're doing everything, but you're never ever feeling everything. So it's not like the wins aren't being integrated into your identity to make you feel like, oh, this is real. I deserve this because I looked at what was forward, I measured it, I broke it down, I judiciously, conscientiously moved forward. Like if we don't know that we are like conscientiously, with real discipline, moving forward and gaining momentum because we chose it, we willed it, then it's easy to look around and go, yeah, I'm with these other people, but I don't feel like I belong because they must have really earned it and I just kind of lucked into it. Because if you feel you lucked into it, that imposter syndrome will always be there. Listen, I feel deeply grateful that I've achieved the level of successes that I've wanted in my life and with my books or my courses or everything else, and I'm still learning, but I can be deeply grateful, but know that I earned this path, that I honored every single struggle, that I architected it out, that I built the strategies, that lots of failings happened and grace opened up and I got, blessings and benefits. Yeah, there's some luck peppered in there too, but also I showed up every single day and I decided what I was gonna do that day. And because I did that, I decided it, and I stayed disciplined, I don't feel fake. I don't feel like I'm an imposter. I'm like, I earned my way into this spot. And sometimes I wish that, the spot was more abundant, more amazing, more awesome, more connected, just like anybody else, but I don't question the work that went into it. Yeah, sometimes I wish I was further along, just like anybody else, but I can go, you know what? I earned my way into this position. And if you can't say you earned it, of course you feel like an imposter. Fourth big idea, and this is really important, it's so simple, to help overcome that feeling of the imposter thing, part of the feeling of the imposter thing is you don't feel the outcome of your work. And so I want you to start visualizing and meditating on the actual outcome of your contributions. So as an example, if you're a new team member of a new company and you're just like, gosh, I don't really belong here, I don't feel like I'm here, I want you to stop. Every time you feel that imposter syndrome come in, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to visualize yourself doing something, and I want you to visualize yourself experiencing, celebrating, seeing, sensing the outcome of the thing. For example, like for me, I began my career writing books and doing seminars. And I remember being with a group of speakers one time, and they had really they'd done a bunch of seminars and they were really along the way, and I'd only done 1 or 2 and I didn't do them well. I went broke doing them. I had no idea what I was doing. I thought, oh my gosh, do I belong with these guys? Like, can I play at their level in the seminar game? And I remember that doubt coming in, and I remember specifically, I talked with a bunch of them, and we were all in this big hotel ballroom. I went over, I got in the hotel elevator, and I closed my eyes and I just said, Brendon, just see it, man. And I forced myself to see myself standing in front of 1,000 people in a hotel ballroom for multiple days and just teaching and training and coaching and interacting and having fun and jumping and clapping. And I was like, how would that feel? And I allowed myself to feel it. And what would it look like? And I'd get little details. And I went up, it was maybe 10 floors in that building. And I'll tell you what, from the doubtful kid who entered on floor 0 to the kid who walked out on 10th floor, I felt like 1,000 feet high. I felt so good, because I felt it. And so much of the imposter syndrome is you're just kind of analytically questioning yourself, and you're digging yourself in a hole, and you're doubting yourself, and you're letting your own thoughts poison you versus fuel you. And there's a visualization or a meditation that could be your savior. And that is just anytime you feel it, take a break. Go lay down or sit down, close your eyes, see it, feel it, sense it, and make it more real. Because the reason you feel like you're an imposter is because it feels fake. So make yourself physically feel and see the outcome of your good works. That might be if you're gonna start a new nonprofit, see and experience yourself okay, you're building that school, and okay, you're opening the doors and the kids are going in and they're getting their first books, and you built a school. Of course you feel like a fake when you start a nonprofit because you don't know what you're doing. But if you do these things, you've asked how you authentically can do it. You don't avoid the difficult work, you work daily goals, and you constantly keep visualizing and feeling it, visualizing and feeling it. I promise you, my friend, do these things and you'll stop feeling as much of an imposter, and you'll start getting real momentum. I keep saying it. You are stronger than you think, and the future holds good things for you. So trust in yourself, honor the struggle, get to work, my friends. These next 12 months, they're yours.
This can be your day for personal growth. This can be that day you committed to and you remember and you go, that was the day I got myself a community. I got better coaches. I committed to making my life the absolute best that I could. This is that day. Make today your growth day. Click the button on this page and sign up right now.